Hi, this is Gayle from BERNINA of Naperville, and welcome to our April session of BERNINA Software Building Blocks. Now, if you didn't join us last month and you want to join now, don't worry. If you sign up on BERNINAofNaperville.com, searching for building blocks, you will be able to get the February lesson as well as this one. Lessons that Debbie Lashbrook has put together on BERNINA of America's behalf. And these lessons, the videos and such, live on the BERNINA Skill Hub. Now, that is its own web address where BERNINA has decided that they are going to keep their videos and their lesson plans. Now, the thing of it is, the handouts and everything will live forever. The video that you're seeing that I'm producing here on our BERNINA of Naperville YouTube channel, that's also going to live forever. But the ones on BERNINA will go away after 2 years. So my recommendation is to keep up with your lessons, but I think almost anybody can do something in 2 years. For my God, that's like a master's program, right? All right. Well, let's get started by reviewing a little bit about what we're going to do today. Okay, so digging in to lesson 2, which is maximizing your embroidery designs through editing. What you're going to learn. So in the BERNINA produced portion, Debbie's going to cover basic overview of editing tools in version 9 and the differences in Creator and Designer Plus. So there's a basic lesson where she's going to cover editing the fills, changing colors, reshaping, remove overlaps, and things like that. In the intermediate lesson, she's going to take you through editing an existing design, adding lettering, and combining designs. And in the advanced portion, it's improved designs for a better stitch out, but it's far more fancy than that description. So basically, you're going to be using these editing tools. There's an edit toolbox that's found in the slots on the far left side of the Creator or the Designer Plus program. There's the edit menu, which is found in the names going across the top of the Creator Designer Plus program. And then there's object properties. And object properties is opened by double-clicking on a design in the workspace, right-clicking on a design, and then seeing the little dialog box that gives you the option at the top for object properties. And then there's also an icon at the top of the Creator Designer Plus program. Once you're in Object Properties, there's also an effects button that's located at the bottom of the properties window, and that's going to take you to even more things where you can transform your design. Now, there's also a transform toolbar, and that's the second horizontal toolbar in your BERNINA embroidery software. So we're going to pay special attention to reshape. It's next to select on your BERNINA Creator Designer Plus. And the context menu is just a little window that pops up when you right-click that gives you access easily to things that you don't have to move your mouse away for. We talked about the edit toolbox, and like I said, this is found on the left side of your software. And there's the differences. You get a lot less with Creator than you do with Designer Plus, but you know, one is kind of an entry-level software and the other one is a bit more fancy. Just like the tools menu, the edit menu is a little bit smaller as well. And then there's not quite as many choices of fill types and the like in object properties. The effects are also a little bit more limited, but you can certainly have a lot of options. And the transform toolbar is going to be pretty much the same. Now, reshape also works the same as in Designer Plus, and I've highlighted the tool here. The little blue arrow is really what we have highlighted when we just simply want to click a design, but reshape hangs out here. It's that little arrow that points to a node, and when that's selected, it gives us all kinds of ways that we can distort, tweak, realign an angle, do all kinds of stuff. It's really important in the editing game. And then, of course, there are the context menus. You can see what it looks like for Creator here on the left and Designer Plus on the right. And then, of course, there's many ways to edit, and Debbie's going to take you through some of these. So the Bernina content and the basics of editing exercise. So this is the flower that you're going to make with Debbie. And you're going to begin with a shape design and learn some basics. You're going to edit the existing built-in design, change the colors, resize, change stitch type, remove overlaps, reshape, and even add decorative fills. So what's the wow, Gayle? Well, the wow in this exercise is that the keyboard commands to select multiple nodes and to change an entire flower all at once. I thought this was absolutely pretty amazing. Then I'm going to show you in this lesson how I took that design that I created myself and made a fun little conversation artwork that I'm going to hang in my sewing room because I am horrible at letting anything alive grow. So Debbie is going to do the second exercise, and she's doing a little like do not disturb sign or whatever, where you're going to learn to delete elements, add lettering, add a design, and manually change the stitch sequence. But what's the wow with this one? Well, quite simply, it's lettering reshape. We can actually take 3 lines of text and squeeze them together to be closer together without distorting our actual text. I thought that was pretty cool. And then we also have this option of Alt plus Polygon Select while it's grouped. And yes, this is going to be a little bit of a time saver and very, very illuminating. And once again, this Alt plus Polygon Select, well, that goes back to the keyboard commands. So the Bernina Content Advanced lesson is improving an edited design. So basically, Debbie's going to make a little luggage tag, and she's going to eliminate these flowers that are here on the right. But what she wants to do is add her own decorative stitches and things like that, and it creates unnecessary tie-ins and tie-offs. So she's going to help you with that. And that, I have to say, was my wow for this exercise, because eliminating tie-ins and tie-offs will really help, number one, with messy looking embroidery underneath, potential wear and tear on your thread cutter, and it just makes the design stitch out faster. So this could be handy for a lot of your embroideries, not just ones that you create from scratch or the ones that you severely edit, like in this lesson. Let's talk a little bit about this presentation deck that you've seen me working from. This is going to be emailed to you as a PDF, and it is interactive. As you can see here, there are links in this. This is going to link to the Bernina content. This is going to link to our additional content. It's going to link to some other videos that I've found along the way that I think you'll find useful. So this presentation really isn't meant to be printed, but this is a keyboard shortcut legend that I found in the manual for the software. And I'll show you how to get there, but it's perfect for printing and laminating, so you can have like this little cheat sheet in front of you as we do some of these things. So don't forget, when I send out our video link, that you're also going to get this very important document, because this is where all the links to everything else lives. Gotcha? Okay. So I got the information for the keyboard shortcuts from the user's manual, and it's found under Help and Reference Manual. And there you can see it. We can expand it and make it larger. So what I normally do, rather than try to find the indexing and all of that stuff, I'll go up to the little search button and I will search for like keyboard shortcuts. You can see it's already there because I searched for it. And then it comes up with all of the options where you can find keyboard shortcuts. Now you have to get through a little bit of sludge first, but then I was able to get to this. And just for reference, it starts on page 1008. The search button is going to search for every possible time keyboard shortcuts is mentioned at the same time together in the document. So that was 19 times if you look at this 9 out of 19 times. But yeah. And this document is 1,135 pages long, so I don't print this, just the pages I need. So let's get started with our keyboard mapping. One of the most challenging obstacles in teaching software is when I'm like clicking all over and it's hard for me to remember to tell you where I'm clicking. And it's like, hey, what keys is Gayle clicking down there? So let's learn and put to use some keyboard shortcuts. This is sure to help you also when you're watching Debbie's lessons. So let's start with some basic everyday shortcuts. There's copy, which makes a copy, kind of like cut, copy, paste. I think we're all familiar with what these icons do, but in this regard, you're going to have something selected, and then you're going to select Control and hold that down while you select C, and that will make a copy to your Windows clipboard. Then when you want to paste it, you just simply hold down Control and then select V, and that will paste an item. And then as long as that item is still in like the temporary memory of your computer, you can keep pasting by just holding down Control and continually clicking on V. Select all is something we use a lot. So if there's nothing selected, but we want everything in the hoop to be selected, then we're going to hold down Control and press A. Control A. Now, select object underneath. Now, this is one that we use in maybe our first or our second time for 9 classes when we do those, but sometimes it's hard to select something if something else is in its way. So with this in mind, we're going to hold down 2 and then left click on our mouse while we're holding down 2, and that will help cycle through to make sure you can get that thing that's underneath. And then simply, if something's selected and you don't want it there, you can press Delete on your keyboard. Sometimes, and you're going to see Debbie use this, where you need to select parts of a group design, but you don't want to ungroup it to do this, you're going to select Alt and then left click. And in Debbie's case, she uses the Polygon Select tool, and then she holds down Alt and left clicks around the item, and that is a wow that she can select something and not ungroup the design. Undo is pretty simple. If you do something you don't like, hold down Control and select Z. Cut. This is a very interesting one because it's not quite the same as copy. Copy is you're selecting something and you copy it and paste it, you have 2. With this example, you hold down Control, you select X, and it temporarily removes it out of your space. But then when you hit Control V to paste it, it will go where you want it. So we use this one a lot when we're snagging something from one design and going on to a new tab and pasting it. Measure. This one is one I use a lot when I bring a picture in or I'm making a design and I want to make sure it's going to fit somewhere. You simply select M on your keyboard and it's going to measure. Sometimes you want to show the needle penetration points, particularly when you're in design view and you want to see if you actually have a fancy fill or not or whatever. Just a simple little click of the dot or the period on your keyboard and it'll show the needle penetration points. Likewise, if it's showing needle penetration points and you don't want to see them, you can select the dot and it will go back to standard. Deselect or back out of a function is escape. We use this a lot. You know, once you use that measuring tool and you want to get the ruler off of your mouse because it feels stuck to it, you just press escape to get rid of it. And escape is in different spots on keyboards, but in this one that we're using, it's just there. Group. Sometimes we want to group an entire design in our hoop because we want to be able to drag it around without breaking it apart. Or we want to kind of draw a little box around it, a few items, or use the Polygon Select tool, what have you. Our keyboard command for that is Control G. Likewise, if you want to ungroup something, it's Control U. Nudge objects are done with our keyboard arrows. Now, zoom controls are really helpful, but sometimes I think some of you are like, what's happening to the wheel of my mouse? Because the wheel of your mouse is actually zoom close or zoom away. But there's other keyboard commands that we can use as well. So Z on your keyboard zooms in 2 times. Shift plus Z is going to zoom out it's going to zoom out 2 times. So you zoom in with a Z and you zoom out with a Shift Z. Show 1-to-1 ratio or 100% scale is as simple as pressing 1. Scrolling. I want to scroll with my mouse, everybody. I want to use my wheel to not zoom. I want to use it to scroll. So vertical scrolling is Alt plus turning your wheel. So you're holding Alt down on your keyboard, and now look at that. We can scroll our little hearts out. Horizontal scroll is done the same way, except this time we're holding down Control and the wheel. Then advanced shortcuts. Now, one day we'll get to these, and that one day might be sooner than you think because Debbie uses some of these in the exercise this month. So stitch beginning, stitch 0, like we haven't stitched anything at all, is the home button. It's going to kind of like it takes you to the very start. It's like pattern begin that you have on your sewing machine, but for embroidery. Then the last stitch of the design is end. And now this one is where it's like, okay, I've totally stitched the design. Where is my needle going to land? And there's different reasons why we want this. And part of the reason is for the advanced exercise. 1 stitch backward is our arrow, our left arrow. Now, this is all done. The stitch backward means that you can't have anything selected in your hoop. You know, like you don't have any of your design selected or anything like that. And then 1 stitch forward would be your right arrow. 10 stitches backward, up arrow, and 10 stitches forward is the forward arrow or the down arrow. Now that we have a little bit of lesson in keyboard commands, let's say you don't want to open your manual. Let's say you don't want to try to memorize or laminate the sheet that I gave you. How do we know where these keyboard commands are and what they are? Well, let me show you a little tour of the software where it shows you what the keyboard commands are. So let's have a look at how we can sort of determine what the keyboard commands are. So just going to File, we can see that creating a new file is Control N. Well, let's try that out with holding down Control and the N on our keyboard. And there's a new design. Looking at Open a Design is Control O. And notice that I really didn't have to look up anything. I'm just clicking and I notice that Control plus N was next to new, Control plus O is next to open, and then of course save is Control S, print is Control P, and exit is Alt plus FP. FP, those are special keyboard keys on your keyboard, and sometimes they do different things. We have a lot of them in Edit, so if we go down here to Edit, you can see now some of this is grayed out because I don't have a design selected, but there's Control Z, Control Y, Control X. We've talked about some of these, but you can see that there's a lot of ones that are available. Now, this is one that is often used when we work in our Bernina embroidery software, and that is T. There's an icon for it right here for artistic view. So let's go back to this file that I have open here. And notice I'm just clicking on the little tabs. I don't really need Design 2. I can close that, and I don't need Design 1. But if we look at this design, this is giving us our true view or our artistic view. But design view looks a little bit different. And of course, I can deselect it by clicking on the icon, but sometimes I don't want to move my mouse all the way up there. So I can simply press T on my keyboard and then press T again to toggle back to artistic view. But that is a little bit easier. When you look up here on undo, it tells you what you did last. So for instance, if I ungroup this, remember, it's Control A to select all and Control U to ungroup. Now look at what ungroup does. It does undo ungroup. So there's all kinds of things when we hover. It also gives us the keyboard command if there's one. Now that wasn't so bad, was it? I don't think so. So now I want you to watch my videos, do whatever, or you can pause these videos down and go over to the Bernina Skill Hub and watch Debbie's portion, whatever you want to do. But lesson 1 that I've put together is actually taking her lesson 1, her basic editing, a little step further. So I'm taking the flower that she created and I'm going to be adding some text to it. I'm going to be doing a applique fabric circular frame around it, and I put it in a cute little hand embroidery hoop. So let's have a look at how I did that, but don't get confused with this flower because you're going to watch Debbie make the flower. So here's my flower in my Bernina Embroidery Designer Plus software. And mine came in, look at me, I'm going to do a keyboard command, Control A. And then I am looking at, I made this like 2.743 because I wanted to fit in this hoop and I want to add some other things around it. So I'm going to deselect by pressing Escape or clicking away. So selected, press Escape, it's deselected. So what I want to do is create some lettering. So I'm going to right click on my lettering over here on the left side under my toolbox drawers. And I'm going to type in my embroidered flowers will never die, ... And then I want to change the font to something that is loaded in on my computer as a true type font. So I'm going to select my true type radial bar here, and then it will help me find this. It's Filmo Type Lucky. And I'm going to just keep my height and everything the same. And I do want to kind of change the angle of this font to like -2. And then I'm selecting the baseline over a circle. Then I want to click in the center, draw my mouse to the right, do another left click, and then bring my mouse down, and voila. Now looking at this, I think I need to go way more italicized. So let's open our object properties screen. And if it's on top of what you're looking at, you can just left click and drag that little window away so that you can see what you're doing here. And I think instead of -2 on my degree here, I need to go about -25. And let's hit apply. Perfect. Now, another thing is this just happened to be perfect. This little circle, my embroidered flowers will never die, right there. But if I wanted my font to actually be a little smaller, I would not enlarge and reduce here like that, because all that's doing is just making the circle bigger. So I want to maybe change the height of my words. So let's go to 0.5 and apply. Maybe I want them to be a little bit smaller than that. Let's do 0.4, apply. Okay. So now let's say you like the height of these flowers, but you want this to be a little bit more closed in the circle. Well, I'm going to go ahead and say okay at this point. And then I want to zoom in kind of down here at the bottom. And I'm going to use my reshape tool, and I'm going to take my little spreader there. It looks like a little triangle with a line, and it will let me close that gap a little bit. It'll also let me release the gap. See that? You can also move the individual letters around if you had two that look kind of squished together, and you can even squish them together like this, and you can make them larger like that. But the best option for me that I like is using this guy because it keeps the letters proportionate and it doesn't stretch the letters wider or stretch the letters taller. So let's have a look at this. I'm going to fit to hoop, and you can do that with a 0 on your keyboard. I'm going to deselect by pressing escape and have a look. Now the only thing is I think the my should start up here. So that's as simple as rotating 45 degrees until I get the my embroidered flowers in the spot that I want my eyes to start looking at that. Now, another thing that we can do is you can see here my little flower has the same gold as the lettering. Well, I want to change my lettering to a different color. And for right now, I just want to make it like a kind of this rich brown. Perfect. Now I have the flower petals behind here, the flower petals in the front, and the flower center. So what I want to do now is take my flower bits, and I want to hold down my control key and select all my flowers, and then hold down Control G to group them together. And you see over here in color film, they all have this dark green ring around it, and that means they're grouped together. Just like my lettering by nature, because I haven't broken anything apart, is grouped together. So I want to select all, that's Control A, and now I want to go over here to the left under my Arrange toolbox, and I want to align all of my centers together because I wasn't quite sure if that circle was perfect. And now that I did the align centers, I like the way this looks. I'm going to hit Shift Z, and I'm zooming out so I can see more of my design. And what we're looking at here as far as the hoop, I'm going to right click on my hoop. I want to use the small clamp hoop. There we go. And so that looks pretty cute. So now what I'd like to do is digitize a circle. So I'm going to go to my digitized drawer and my closed object, and I'm picking my single line stitch, and I'm just going to do a right click, and a right click in the shape of a triangle, and then press enter on my keyboard. And once again, I'm going to Control A to select all and go back to my Arrange tab so that I can line them all up together. There we go. Now you might ask me, why would I do that left click 3 times to make the circle instead of just clicking around or using the ellipse tool? Honestly, I find I'm able to make a much more accurate, perfect circle that way. So there's just so many ways of doing it, but this is how I've always done it. So now I want to take this design and go to my Applique tab in my toolbox drawers, and I want to convert to Applique. Look how easy that was. And then I can select my design, which is grouped together there, and I'm going to open Object Properties. Now this time, I don't want to tack down stitch, but I do want a cutting line because I'm going to do this trim in place. And I want to do this as a blanket stitch. And now I'm going to apply and OK. And now let's have a look at our design. So looking at this with a discerning eye, you know what is going on here? I'm going to be placing my peach fabric that's creating a border for my piece and framing my white fabric that I'm going to stitch on here. And I want my little blanket stitch bits to be going into the peach fabric, not down into the white fabric. So as I select this, and I'm going to use color film to select it, and I go to my object properties and I go to the applique, there is no way for me to reverse the direction of my blanket stitch. So with that in mind, I'm going to break apart my piece, and I'm keeping the red and I'm keeping this blue, but I'm deleting the gold, and I'm going to select my green stitch and I'm going to change that to blanket stitching. And now, as you can see, it's still going the wrong way, but now if I go to object properties and I go to outline stitch, I have the option to inverse and say apply, and offset and say apply. But my offset is way too far away from that circle. So I can either enlarge my blanket stitching and get it closer, or work with the original center, thinking that, you know what, I might not be able to cut right up against the line and this might work. And that's what I'm going to try to do. So let's say okay. Let's zoom to fit here. And I'm pretty sure that this is going to look good. So now I feel confident. I'm ready to stitch this out. Stitching this out, I found a line in the darker petals that I didn't like, but with that offset, I was able to make it look like that blanket stitch was going much closer to the edge there. Okay, so let's remedy our flower situation. What I want to do is select it and then Control U on my keyboard to ungroup it. And then I'm going to zoom in on it to look. And I think it's probably going to look best if I hit T on my keyboard and see Artistic View. And there's that line that I don't like very much right there. So what I'm going to do is select my flower only, my purple flower. And if we want, we can go back to Design View, and I'm going to select my Reshape object. And I just want to change the angle. So I'm taking my angle, and it's the little orange dots with this like line, and I'm changing it to 90 degrees, hitting T back so I can see my design and see, I think I like that much better. I like that much better. So now I'm going to escape, send it back to my machine, and stitch it again. So after restitching it, the flower looks so much neater after changing the angle to 90 degrees. Well, I hope you enjoyed that one. So now it's on to the BERNINA of Naperville Lesson 2, where Mother's Day is coming up next month. And, I thought, well, what are we going to do for Mom? We could do a card. We could do something like that. But what we might need is just something really cute that we added a personal touch to put on an existing gift. And in my mind, I am giving a little monstera plant. And so I wanted to add like a little band around the pot just to add that little special touch. Now, the special thing about this is that it is a patch that is on some of your embroidery machines, but it's also an item that you can download right from oesd.com. And don't forget, in your handouts that you get from BERNINA of Naperville, there are these links that you can get to buy everything that you need for the supplies, including the designs. But I used one of these designs. This is, I think this is from a collection called Retro Kitchen. But nonetheless, So I used this, I removed the original text, and then I added my own text, and I added another little extra step so that this tag could look pretty on the back side as well as on the front side. I also stopped down and added some ribbon so that I could tie it around the pot. Okay, so here we are again in our software, and this is I love this so much. I think I really want to do these for actual canisters. They're adorable. But what I want to do is remove the sugar part from here. So let's hit T on our keyboard and get to design view. And now I'm going to make sure I have my selection tool on, and you can see that it came in ungrouped. It also looks like it came in without actual text, which is typical. If you watch Debbie's portion of this, where she does the do not disturb doorknob sign, it's not really do not disturb, I know, but you'll see she talks about this as well. So I'm just going to delete all of my little pieces here. And there's a tool called Polygon Select, and it's right next to our blue selection arrow. And if we left click around the bits that we don't want, it's a little bit quicker to delete our pieces. Then you just hit enter and you delete. It looks like I missed that little bit there, so I'll just delete it. Okay, perfect. So now I have a clean slate. And at this point, I'm going to change my outer stitching and all of this stuff here using color film to pink. Now I'm going to use red. Bear with me here. And I'm going to go to my lettering and my text. I'm going to right click on lettering and I'm going to write Happy Mother's Day. I think I want to put Mother's Day on one row and happy in a row by itself like that. I also want to change the way this stitches. So I'm going to pick my centered justification. And then I want to find like a cute font. And there's so many cute fonts. Let's go with something that's already digitized here on our machine. And you know, before when I was making the other design, I had just my true type selected. Well, this time I want embroidery selected. And now when I hit the drop-down menu, it's only the ones with the little red zigzaggy next to them. So let's have a look through these fonts. I don't want to pick any of the ones that say 3D. That's just going to be too long for my liking. Let's have a look at this one. It says it's called Megan. I'm going to say okay, and then I'm going to click in the center there. Not sure I'm loving it. So let's keep it selected and double click. And now I can audition some fonts here without closing my information. So let's try Abby. That's one that usually looks pretty cute. So let's hit apply. Oh yeah, that's so much better. And now this time I want to go down, see the range that we can do for this font. I want to make this just a little smaller than 5.51. I think I'm going to do 0.45. Hit apply. Perfect. And on this one, I don't want to change the italics. I want to keep it with the straight baseline. So I'm going to say okay. Now I'm going to select this and move it with my, left click and hold, which is called left click and drag. I could also tweak it by pressing the arrows on my keyboard. But for now, I like that. And then I'm going to select my reshape object and see this piece. I'm going to try to zoom in here for you using the wheel of my mouse. See that little down arrow there? That's the piece I click so I can squeeze my words together. I don't want to squeeze them together too much because then my apostrophe kind of goes into outer space there, but I think I want to move these a little bit closer together. Then I want to see if I can move my apostrophe, or at least make it a little bit smaller. There we go. All right, so now I'm going to Shift Z, and escape to deselect. And now I'm going to press T on my keyboard to see how it looks. Oh, I really like that. Perfect. And now this time I also want the Happy Mother's Day to stitch in pink. So I'm going to change the color of Happy Mother's Day to pink so it matches. And you can also see how it grouped the words and the outside and all of that. This would be okay if we were just making a patch, but I think I'm going to have to go back and keep Mother's Day red for right now. And then I also want to look at this stitching. So I talked about this being a patch. I want this to look pretty on the back side as well as the front side for when, mom needs to take this off the plant or whatever. I don't want to see the embroidery on the back side. So I'm going to take color number 1, and I'm just going to simply Control C and Control V to paste a new design. Now I'm going to change the color of just something we haven't used before. Now let's examine this pink color, because there's some other things that are going on that we don't see in here. So we want to select it, and then we want to go in color film. We want to actually show objects rather than just the individual colors. If we do show objects, I can see all the little bits that make up everything's pink that might be hidden, when we just view it by color. This is my placement stitch. So I'm going to hoop up poly mesh stabilizer, just one layer, in my small clamp hoop. And this is going to stitch down. Then I'm going to need a tack down stitch. And I think this is perfect for that. So I want to change this to color number 3. And it's going to turn it green. So now the tack down stitch is going to tack down the ribbon, because I'm going to lay my ribbon on my piece. Then I'm going to lay a piece of white fabric that has 2 layers of stable stick cutaway behind it to make it rigid and stiff. Then, once that tacks down, I'm going to trim only the white fabric really close to the edge. Then I want to remove this shape. And then finally our satin stitch, which will cover all of our raw edges. So I'm going to make that teal. And now I can go back to my show color here. So then it's going to stitch our beautiful little pink filigrees, and then our Happy Mother's Day. And then here and here we need to do something with. Because this stitch, after Happy Mother's Day stitches, I want to take the hoop off my machine, turn it upside down, and cover this shape with another piece of white fabric. Then I'm going to stitch this color on the machine with the hoop back on the machine and everything to hold that back piece on. Then I'm going to take the hoop off the machine again, trim really close to the edge, and then I want to stitch my cover stitch. So I'm moving that to the end of the piece. And then it is safe for me to do all of these colors in pink when I'm over at my sewing machine. And I want pink thread in the top and the same pink thread in the bobbin. And I want to make this pink so that they will stitch together without me having to press the button twice. So now this design is ready to stitch. Hey, I think this is another successful project. So now for our lesson 3. You know what? We're going to be doing a little bit of traveling soon. Certainly, I'm going on some short trips in 2024, but there's a big one scheduled for 2025. And I want to make some luggage tags. But, just putting Donahue on a luggage tag doesn't really do the trick. So I want to put my phone number. I could put email and other things too on the back. So this is going to be a double-sided tag that has an embroidered back and an embroidered front. And we're going to apply some of those special techniques that we learned from Debbie's video, where we're going to eliminate tie-in and tie-offs, as well as really give a discerning look to our embroidery design to make sure that it is going to stitch out as perfect as the pros do it. So let's get to it, because this one's really fun and it's super colorful. So this next project you can open and find in your public folders, Public Embroidery, BERNINA 9 Embroidery, and it's actually a project in the hoop. And there's a lot of fun things in here. I mean, I totally would make some of these like right now, but we're going to look for our little tag. And there it is. So let's open this. And now let's just talk about the thread and everything that you might need for this. So you're going to use whatever threads you want for all of these different color changes, but whatever you pick for your satin stitch around here and these is what you are going to put in your bobbin as well. So I did green, but I'm not going to change the color of it until later on. So also with this, I'm hooping up a layer of aqua mesh stabilizer to just in case, but this is going to be done on the water soluble in either my small clamp hoop or my medium clamp hoop. And I am going to design this with my last name on it. And then I'm going to actually make another piece that's actually going to stitch first so that this can be reversible. So it's going to have Donahue on the front, and then on the back side, I'm going to have a cute little stitch and then the phone number. So for the first exercise, I'm going to press T on my keyboard and get it into design mode. And there are certain things that I know I want. I want stitch down number 1. That's going to be my placement stitch to let me know where I want to put the tag. And in this application, my tag is going to be made on the back and the front from the same fabric. And it's like this minty solid fabric. 2 is going to be my tack down stitch after I place the fabric over stitch number 1. Then no problem, we're just going to go through all of these cute little diamonds. And then the final stitch is going to be another tack down stitch. And that one is going to sew another piece we're going to create onto the back, just like we did our pot band. And then finally, the satin stitching and the eyelet and the other bits. But I want to just take a word and spell my name and put this down here. So I'm going to go over to the lettering monogram, right click, and I'm typing Donahue. And then I'm searching for, it's like this font that's really scripty and cool called Amalfi Coast. And then I am just going to keep everything at the default setting and say, okay, click. Now I'm going to rotate it so that it's, right, it's corresponding with my tag here, but I want to make it a little bit larger. And I can double click it and open up object properties and make sure that I resize it within the constraints of the suggested size here and hit apply. But that's way too big, so I know I can go smaller than that. So I'm just going to go over here and resize with my little handles. And I don't want it to be this big. I want it to be about like this. All right, that looks good. Now I'm going to say okay. And this time I want to change the color of this to dark green. And I'm going to add a new color. Did you know you can add colors to stuff down here like this? And I'm changing it to this green color. Perfect. And now I only want to do one more thing. And that is I want to remove my underlay stitches or my overlay stitches from these little bits here. So let's go ahead and select our name, and we're going to go to Edit and Remove Overlaps. And I'm just going to zoom in for you so you can see, and you can see it removed a little bump from there. And it may or may not have removed the bump there. It looks like it did remove from down there. Okay, perfect. Now I'm happy with that. So I'm going to save this now as luggage, tag, front. So now next, I want to delete a few things. I want to delete colors 3 through 12 and just simply delete on my keyboard. I also want to delete the name. Perfect. Okay, so now I want to select all by Control A, and I'm going to mirror it because this is going to be the back of our piece that we're going to build. Okay, so now what I don't want to do yet, I'm not going to stitch these satin pieces, but I want to leave them there for a reference. So what I'm going to do is go back to my lettering and right-click on my lettering, and I'm going to type in the store phone number. And I want to pick one of our little run fonts that we used last time. And I want to do run here, run cardigan. And I'm going to, I don't care what size it is or anything like that, so I'm just going to say okay, click, and I'm going to rotate it so it fits in here. And I'm going to make it a little bit larger, just a little bit with that handle there like that. And now I like it like that. And I'm going to say, I want to break this apart so I can change it to triple stitch. So I'm going to go to Edit and Break Apart, select it again and break apart, and select it again, and now change it to triple stitch. Perfect. Now, there's a couple weird things on here, so I want to deal with this. So what I'm going to do is go to Design and Auto Start and End, and have the first stitch of the design and the last stitch of the design be where it starts and ends. And then right-click on my hoop so that I can have the design centered again, because right now the default tick is at center needle position, and I want it to just be centered in the hoop. So there we go. That looks pretty good. And now I want to add something else to this. I want to add a decorative stitch. So I'm going to take my digitizing drawer and my open object tool, and I'm going to click a vertical line that starts right in the middle of my satin stitch, and then click straight down. So my line is perfectly straight. And enter. So that was 2 left clicks and an enter. Now I'm going to select this, and I'm going to go to Object Properties and choose Outline Stitch and Pattern Run. And then I'm going to go to Select, and I just want to pick a fun little stitch here, see what we have. And you can do a true view of stitches if you want to see, more like what they really stitch out like there. It's easier for me to see what I'm really going to be stitching as I audition little stitches for this. I think I want to pick my little sewing machine here and say, okay, and apply. And then I have some options here where I can move it a little bit and have it fit better on my label like that. That looks good to me. All right, I'll leave that there just like that. So now that I have my numbers positioned and my sewing machines positioned, I'm going to delete these satin stitches here. And you can see here that I have this weird little tie-in, tie-off piece there, so I'm going to select that and delete it. And then that eliminated some jump stitches, but let me explain what's happening here. We have the numbers are going to stitch, then it's going to jump up here to stitch a sewing machine. So I'm thinking I would like to just do a little loop-de-loop stitch that will get us to the 3. Then after the number stitches out, a little loop-de-loop stitch that might get us in the border here. And what that's going to do then is allow us to eliminate some tie-ins and tie-offs, just like you saw in Debbie's portion of the video. So we're going to change my black and my lettering to all green, this number 27 stitch. And then what I want to do is select my home button. And the home button has turned my stitches gray because theoretically this is like pattern begin in your sewing machine, nothing has stitched out yet. And then once we go up here, we have the choice to jump by object or jump by color. So what I want to do is pick jump by object, and I'm going to use my arrows. Now remember in our keyboard lesson, we learned that one keyboard arrow moves it 1 stitch at a time. If we go backwards or forwards, depending on which sideways arrow we pick, and then the up arrow goes backwards by 10 and the down arrow goes forwards by 10. Well, that's going to take me a really long time. So let me do this jump by color. So there's the first color, there's the second color, and now it's time to jump by object. And I'm using these arrows up here, and this is where I can jump by different segments. But what I don't want to do is stitch out my satin stitching. So I'm already deleting this from my piece. Anything satin stitch related, because that's going to stitch with the front part of our design. We just want a little clean slate back here. So let's look at this under our objects. And I only want lettering. So I'm going to see that piece, I don't want it. And I don't want that piece. And it looks like everything else is a number. Yeah, okay. So we're going to go back to home. And now I'm going to cycle by color. And now I'm going to jump by object. So now let's watch as I hit these little arrows up here. Perfect. See that? Let's zoom in closer so you can see exactly what's happening here. So when I scroll by segment, see that? That little white cross there, that is exactly where my needle is. And when I click to the next segment, it's going to start stitching my 3. So I want to back up until my needle is just there. Now I'm going to use my open object tool and triple stitch and single stitch, and I want to click right on that very center spot there, and I'm going to just follow this line right in here because I'm traveling to this part of my piece, and then I'm going to hit enter. Now what I want is to change to triple stitch, and now I'm going to just freehand make. These are all right clicks here. Just a little loop-de-loop to just look like a little stitch that will end where my 3 starts. So now I'm going to press enter. And do you see how that jump stitch was eliminated? Now what I'm going to do is go forward by segment And it does all the phone number. And once I get to the end of the one, I'm going to start drawing another little open object with my triple stitch. So I'm going to put my cursor right on top of that little white square intersection. And now let's just do and then enter. So now that's going to be super cute. But now I have another jump stitch that's going from here to where my sewing machine starts. So what I want to do now is take my open object tool and select my single, and I'm going to go back down here and click right on that white cross, and I'm going to go right in between this stitching. Don't worry, we can always use the reshape object to fix things later. And I want to zoom in here because I want to end this. And I'm going to backspace to get rid of that node there that I just made. And now I'm going to connect it just there and hit enter. And you notice that that tie-in line disappeared. So I'm going to select this and reshape it. And I'm doing that by selecting that node and hitting my space bar to make it straight. And now I'm going to zoom in here and tweak this just a little bit. There we go. Very little tie-ins and tie-offs there. So now, if I scroll through by segment again, we'll see that the whole thing is complete. So let's look at what we have here. So this is going to be our placement line. This holds our fabric into place and tacks it down. And this is not necessary anymore, so we're going to delete that. And we don't really need to change anything else. So there we go. So now we're going to save this as luggage tag back. And I'm sending these to the machine. So now we just need to see how to stitch it out. I started off with retrieving my luggage tag back in my medium clamp hoop, and I put it really low at the bottom left corner. Then I added my luggage tag front. And so now this is how I'm going to stitch these out in with just 2 layers of aqua mesh stabilizer. Once the mint fabric has been placed down and the tack down stitch has been formed, it's time for the machine to just continue stitching all of the green because we're actually going to stitch the back of our label first, because the actual luggage tag has the stop down to place this piece on the back. Now, I do want to give you full disclosure here. This is something that I stitched before our exercise that we did on the computer. So this design looks a little bit different, but don't worry, it's the same exact concept. Once that tag stitches out, you're going to stitch the placement line for the front of the luggage tag. And that stitches only on the stabilizer. And now the front of our luggage tag has 2 layers of staple stick cutaway on it, just like our plant band. And now we're going to stitch the tack down stitch. And once this tack down stitch has been stitched, then that's when we're going to stop down and trim really close to those tack down stitches. Then you're just going to carry on with all of the different color changes. And don't forget, like I said, you can pick any color combination that you want for these diamonds. It's up to you, however you want to do it. And you're going to stitch Donahue. Well, you're not going to stitch Donahue. Unless you want to make me a whole bunch of luggage tags, you can stitch whatever name you're deciding to put on your luggage tags. Once the name is complete, you're going to take your work off of the machine, but leave it in the hoop. And then you're going to cut out of the stabilizer that back tag piece that we completed earlier. And you're going to just leave this hole in your hoop because, believe it or not, your machine can embroider with just a little bit of stabilizer clamped in. That's the beauty of these small and medium clamp hoops. And once you get it free, you're not going to trim really close to the stitching. You're going to leave it just like that, as it is, as it came out of the hoop. But I like to use my 505 temporary glue stick. And what this is doing is it's really super sticky, and you can stitch through it when it's still wet. And this is going to allow a good adhesion for me to line everything up perfectly. So you're going to line that tack down stitch up with the perimeter of the front of the tag. And once again, this is on the back side of the hoop. And then once that dries and you get everything stuck down, we're going to turn the hoop over and we're going to stitch the tack down stitch for the luggage tag. Once that tack down stitch completes, we're going to take the hoop off, turn it upside down again, and trim really close to the edge, only the fabric around this particular tack down stitch. And then you can see that after you trim, you're just going to simply stitch all of the satin stitching. That includes the satin stitch bars above and below the name, and the satin stitching around the tag to cover the raw edges, and the reinforcement stitch above the eyelet and the eyelet itself. And once you take it out of the hoop, you're going to give it a little bath, let it dry completely, and press it flat to dry. Okay, well, regardless if you watched all of our videos or if you kind of bounced around and watched some of Debbie's and some of ours, I hope you learned something. And don't forget, we're here for you. You can watch our videos again and again and again, and you can do the same with Debbie's. So if you're confused or anything and you need some help signing up for this program, you know what? On our BERNINA of Naperville YouTube channel, we have actually gotten a couple videos on the BERNINA Skill Hub and how to use it. So make sure you check those out. But also make sure that you check out other things at our YouTube channel, which is easy to find because it's youtube.com/BERNINA of Naperville. And there you can like, comment, and subscribe. And when you subscribe, make sure that you ring the little bell to sign up for notifications when we post a new video. So until then, happy sewing, happy embroidery, and now happy digitizing. See ya.